It's nice under my roof.
Oh yeah, you got the wind going.
I got
No,
the
no,
AC.
no. I just have good insulation.
Wow, that's amazing. Anyway, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Smudcast number 684. Are multiversal stories a problem? Interesting. This has been going on for decades and decades, and I believe, was it Jules Verne? I'm trying to remember who came up with the original concept in the past 100 years. I can't recall. But comic books probably did it in the 60s as a technique, and then they realized, oh, we can use this to later on in the 70s with the death of like all these like characters like Wolverine and what have you, Jean Grey, to bring them back in an alternate world because there's alternate realities and all this other wonderful stuff that post, I guess you could say, I was going to say Einstein, but even before that, it was before him, where the scientific concept of quantum mechanics existed. So it just got into the social milieu of all of our wonderful storytelling and reading habits that everyone's just coming up with it. So I don't know what this video is about. Let's check out the stats. It's from Something's Fishy. That's a great YouTube name. Are multiversal stories a problem? Cool. This came out a month ago, and it's got almost 40,000 views. And he's a small YouTuber. He's got less than 400 subs. So good for him. I think that's good. It's a good topic to talk about. I have not watched probably a lot of the multiverse stories. There was one philosophical video I do recommend called Possible Worlds, which I watched about 20 years ago, which has a few more philosophical ideas, not about multiverse though. So it would be more, easier to understand and follow as a story. But I'm not a huge fan of multiversal stories. As we all know, I like reading isekai. And essentially that is a multiverse story. You're going to another world in another part of the universe. How that works, we don't know.
Another dimension. But I think multiverse goes further than just I'm going to another world. Because
it depends.
It's sort of this thing of going as if going to another timeline.
It depends, because isekai adds to the world with video game controls or video game interfaces, which is this basic concept we've had for decades since we've had JRPGs. And they want to gamify the world you're in. They want to fantasize it. They want to make all kinds of other genres within it. Very similar to how Marvel does its stuff. They have multi-genre stories, even before they got into multiversal stuff with their Avengers stories. Those are all multi-genre. So settings are going to be fantastical. So if you're going to have crazy things happening, you're going to have people distorting reality, like the Scarlet Witch, which is one of those dangerous powers you have in storytelling for comic books, that if you can just start, like Mxyzptlk from DC, starts altering reality, that's a big problem. That's a big problem for your setting, your narrative, and your characters when up is no longer up or the sun is no longer the sun. It's not a good thing to start playing around with the physical nature of reality. So
what the tool Marvel and DC mainly uses is more parallel worlds, not completely different worlds that function completely differently. I think those are just used in the sequences in Doctor Strange 2, for example.
Oh, I remember the 90s show Sliders that had
that one.
The guy from Indiana Jones. The Mentat from the first Dune game.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. Really great actor, and he was the professor. And it was one of those shows that just, hey, we're going to tell this story again. It's like, okay, every week's different. I thought that was clever. So it was kind of like a sci-fi light drama with a lot of action. And there was all like these bug creatures, and there was all these futuristic, I can't remember what they were called, but they were trying to conquer all the worlds. So it was a cool show, and it lasted a few seasons. I thought it was pretty well done. And I actually have that whose actor's name I forget. I have his signature because he was on My Secret Identity, which was a show prior to that where he played a kid superhero. Canadian shows, isn't that the crap? Oh my God, can't. Sometimes we get gold at 20 times or 30 times.
I think like one of the actors from Sliders was Gimli from Lord of the Rings.
That's the guy. That's the guy, the Mentat.
That's the guy? Okay.
He's got a very distinctive
wow.
voice and look. Yeah, he's very cool.
He's Canadian?
I don't think he's Canadian, but he's got the, he goes over the world to work. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'd say the main tool, and where it's the most useful or acceptable, I would say, the way that Marvel and DC operate is when they use this multiverse excuse to reiterate their stories in whatever the current decade is. Like, we did the Batman stuff in the 50s, then we did it in the 80s, then we did it in the 90s, then we did it in 2010s or something, and you have this like, what would the story be if it played in the current decade? I think that's the main thing where I'd say, okay, do that, do it for the kids.
Yeah, I think the first time I remember seeing that, or maybe go, what's this story about? Whereas a comic that you guys might remember, a cover of the Flash, and there's the Flash. He's on his normal red outfit, and then they have like the Golden Age Flash with the Hermes wings on his like war helmet, like it's a steel.
Yeah.
And they're running together, and I was like, what's this? This doesn't look right. Apparently, the original or the Red Flash ran into another world where this other Flash was still around. I was like, whoa, that's cool. So that was in the 60s. And then after that, then Marvel got that idea and played around with whatever they were doing. I can't remember what the story with Marvel was, but then they just kept using it. So it does get a bit old if you overuse the whole we're in a different dimension of Earth 52 and all other things. And then the Flashpoint Paradox. That was fun. And then they made a movie about it that I never watched. So yeah, it's not doing so well at the theaters right now.
Oh wow! And
It's
Gimli
got
just turned 79 this year.
Who?
The Gimli actor.
Oh wow, he's still kicking. That's awesome. Good for him. Yeah, no, he's a great actor, and he played the professor teaching cue ball. That's his nickname in the show, about alternate dimensions and ultimate worlds. And he's like creating this machine that can do that in his basement. He's like sleeping in class. That was funny. Anyway, we're ready to go. This video is only 13 minutes long. Won't take too long. And I hope we agree with many things this gentleman has to say. So, here we go.
Over the last couple of years, there have been a decent amount of movies and TV shows using a very interesting concept. But with this concept being used more often, I've been seeing more and more videos arguing that this...
Does anyone know what this intro is?
I think it's like one of those Marvel shows.
Oh, okay.
The What If? Yeah.
Bad. This is Brian from the Fishy podcast. I will be your guide as we search for the answer. So let's ponder the question. Are multiversal stories a problem?
Most are badly written.
Yeah, this is like saying as time travel stories a problem. Mostly are badly written as well. So it's not
too inconsistent, destroying stakes, and so on and so on.
Once you start
interesting,
once you start changing reality, physical, time, whatever, you're going to run into a lot of problems at conventional storytelling methods that you will usually not get used to. You're going to lose your audience. It's kind of like when you change tone from like a war story to a romance, then back to a war story. It's very difficult. So it's kind of like telling two different stories, if not more, because then you have to reassess or restate the setting and the stakes and what's the problem and why are we doing this and how do we get here and all this other stuff. Whereas with Sliders, the story is about going to multiple galaxies multiple universes where everything's almost the same. So that is the nature of the story. So you're used to it when it happens.
It gets weird when your multiverse starts to have some, I'd say, nexus points, like places or items or people that only exist once across the entire multiverse, because then that raises the question, is it really a multiverse because of that?
Yeah, I think I remember that in one of the, Star Trek novels I read from Peter David, where Beverly Crusher's husband, who dies originally, and Q is like, you know what? Out of all the other possibilities in existence, there's only one of you that survived that day at that battle or whatever it was. And I was like, really? Q? That
makes no sense.
That's insane. Like, if every possibility is possible, then no.
Then you will have iterations on that one possibility.
Yeah. So Q, what just happened here? How do you know? And of course, it's Q.
He's lying.
Q is a god. So if Q says it happened, then it happened. But he's also a trickster god.
So he's lying.
Yeah.
Multiverse stories have been popular for a very long time, but in recent years, every movie and TV show has a different way to explain it. So first, let's start with a few different ways movies explain the multiverse.
Were they popular for writers or were they popular with the audience?
MCU uses the term multiverse and timelines loosely. When a decision is made that is not a predetermined one by the TVA steps in and prunes the time.
The TVA? What is he talking about?
He's talking about this god-awful Loki show that nobody watched except weird girls that want to see Loki.
Okay, so it is an actual show.
Yeah. It's you remember the he's been melted meme? That was that.
Yeah, that one. All right. Here's Kyogress's hideout again. Thank you, sir. Multiverse stories work best as an ultimate finale, with my gold standard example being the TMNT 2003 finale movie Turtles Forever.
Yes, that was actually good. That was a good multiverse story.
I don't think I watched that.
Oh, dude, it's actually good.
And I do recall the first two Turtles films.
It's for the animated for the cartoons.
Oh, it's the cartoon ones. Okay, yeah, all right.
It's a spoilers. It's a crossover of the 80s, 90s cartoon and the 2010-ish cartoon. And it ends in the original Turtles from, I don't remember the decade, the black and white ones.
Okay, cool.
It's really good. It's actually really good, even if it uses the dump shredder.
Just going to let Miss Minix explain it.
Welcome to the Time Authority. I'm Miss Minix, and it's my job to catch you up in the sacred timeline.
No, this is bullshit.
Now, the timekeepers protect and preserve the proper flow of time for everyone and everything. But sometimes people like you veer off the path the timekeepers created. We call those variants. Maybe you started an uprising, or were just late for work. Whatever it was, stepping off your path created a nexus event. The TVA has stepped in to fix your mistake and set time back on its predetermined path. Now that your actions have left you without a place on the timeline, you must stand trial for your offenses. So sit tight, and we'll get you in front of a judge in no time.
Wait. Why don't you just prune the timeline with the variant did it, instead of taking the variant to stand trial just to send him to the edge of time with everything that was pruned? Everything Everywhere All at Once Multiverse works similarly, just without a TVA. Every time a decision is made, a branch reality is made, but each universe is only explained as a universe and not a timeline. Think of the concept like flipping a coin. If you flip a coin, it's said that the universe splits in half to create two universes, one where it lands on heads and the other universe where it lands on tails. For shows like CW Flash, the multiverse...
the explanation that the TVA uses for the multiverse, or the timeline rather, is the same that Back to the Future did. And I think this is one of the problems of the MCU in explaining things there, is that there's a conflation between timelines, time travel, and different universes, parallel universes. Those are not the same things. And yeah, that's... Are you still talking about multiverses, or are you talking about timeline stuff, which is another version of that? And you tell the stories differently as well.
Yeah, confusing these two or adding those two with time travel as well as multiverse, that would be really.
Yeah, I'd rather bring up the example from the Green Lantern animated show, where character travels back to the time of creation of the universe to affect the creation of the universe to make it different. And then, well, rest is more spoilers. But that's an interesting spin on the whole thing.
Okay.
Well, this is just random stuff.
And timelines are different. Going back in time changes the present timeline, but doesn't change, alter, or create alternate universes.
When I saved her, I created a new reality, a new timeline.
Whenever you go back in time, it breaks. You can reset the timeline. You can try to fix it. But no matter how hard you try, it's never going to be exactly how it was.
Similar to Back to the Future.
Right, Scott.
Into the Spider-Verse's multiverse doesn't allow one to be outside their own dimension for long. So that is why it differs a bit from the other versions of this concept. Into the Spider-Verse's universe stands alone and separate from each other. But just like the others, can be traversed by science shenanigans.
Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
So with those explanations out of the way, now we can answer the question. Like I said, multiversal stories have been very popular, but they've gotten a lot of criticism for things like, oh, there are no stakes. If you kill this character, you could just bring them back. Sure, maybe, but only if that's what the story allows. And
No, it also means that, we can just tell another story about that character in another universe, so we can keep the show going while replacing the actor.
That's generally what the comics did. They wanted to bring characters back and have writers do their own take, so they just said, hey, we're in a different world now. It's very similar to our own, but slightly different, and now the future has a bunch of killer robots, and Storm has a mohawk, and all these other weird things start happening. So that's normal in comics. It's just how it goes.
Western comics.
Yeah.
It's a US comics specifically.
Yeah, I know. We got to distinguish that. And these are during the 80s and 90s when they actually were using this technique a lot. So it's like, all right, there's all these alternate Earths and alternate timelines. It's like, okay. That because DC was getting silly after a certain point. There was just too many versions. It's same with Marvel. Too many versions of the same character, and they know which was canon. So they said, okay, this is canon to this universe, and this is canon to that. And you're like, okay, fair enough.
multiverse, if you kill a character, they can bring them back. I mean, just look at Harrison Wells. Now, when you do it a bunch of times, it gets old and stale, and it turns into not caring because we'll get another Wells next season. But what made this work for the first few seasons was that each Wells acted and behaved differently. That's what makes a multiverse so amazing. We get to see, what if Barry Allen never became Flash?
So you're saying because
Do you want to see that?
the actor had different personalities in each world, that's what makes it interesting? I mean, sure, that's one way of looking at it, for the main character to have different behavior socially, but that's not why you watch The Flash, I think.
I mean, if your show is explicitly about jumping parallel worlds, okay.
Yeah.
If it's not your main gimmick, then it usually falls flat and comes off as a Deus Ex Machina. And yeah, that creates the problems.
I think I'm trying to remember that. Oh, it's called Parallels. The Star Trek TNG episode where Worf is seeing different realities that are just like his. And some sort of, I can't remember what happens, but all these enterprises just started popping into existence.
Yeah.
And it happened so quickly where the whole quadrant's going to be filled up with enterprises.
I like that episode.
It was so silly. It was like, okay, this is going nowhere. And it just keeps happening and happening. You're like, okay. It was a silly science experiment. And you got some of the actors, like I think there was this crazy Riker guy who was scared of the Borg. It's just like everyone's nuts. Like, okay, this is getting...
That was a Borg Enterprise, right?
No. It was attacked by the Borg so many times it was barely holding on. And the crazy Riker there was like, no, I don't want to go back. Don't send me back.
Yes, that was.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't shave. He's all grizzly and crazy. Like, what the hell is this? What is happening with this narrative? So, and it got ridiculous to the point where Data was like, well, in about 2 hours, we're going to have 50,000 enterprises just in this area. You're like, what? This is so stupid. This is just nuts. So
I think the solution was warfare to do some mundane thing that he didn't want to do to solve this.
I can't recall the exact. It was something silly, but it was like, okay, this is dumb. This is no
basically
longer
on the level of proper pimple.
I don't know. So you can write really bad or really silly stories with this concept, and even if it's within a world of science fiction, that requires a bit more effort on behalf of the writers to make that work.
Or at least
That's the
interesting.
thing I didn't like about Loki. We heard about different universes, but we didn't get to see and experience them. Look at
don't
Evelyn
need
and
to.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. We got to experience different lives she could have had. But if you took a version of her from another universe and put her into the main one, she would be out of place. How she interacts with everyone will be different. Superman and Lois showcase this really well with John Henry and Lois. If you have a story where the characters in other universes act the same, then yeah, there would be no stakes, because if you kill someone on Earth 52, then you can grab someone from Earth 616.
Wait. Because the
That person is then missing on 616.
Yeah, the personalities are different. Therefore, there are no stakes because you could bring said character into this world and it's okay because their personalities are the same. No, that's not how. No, that's not the problem.
The worlds are different enough already because they keep diverting in details all the time.
Yeah,
You'd get a migraine at least.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. I mean,
and the people in your home are gonna miss you.
Yeah, imagine if, I don't know, Picard was a ladies' man, drunken sailor kind of guy, and you brought him into this world. That'd be interesting. It's like, well, no, I'd stop watching the show if they did that. In the next, like the third season, he's just this crazy drunken captain. You're like,
You don't need to always show it.
Well, anytime
it's relevant enough that the other world is invading or anything. Like Dormammu's world, when that was taking over our world, we didn't need to see everything about it because it was basically nothing.
Yeah, I remember reading another Dark World, or the Dark Star Trek universe, where everyone in the other world is like this militaristic empire. And
that's the base Star Trek universe.
It's really cool. I can't remember exactly all the details, but like Troy in that world was like sadistic, and she was like attacking people with her mind. But
she was useful.
She was actually doing like dangerous, deadly things. But when Troy went there, the real Troy, and she saw that, she's like, well, and she peered into her mind. She had no defenses because she had no need for them. So this Troy was just like destroying her mentally. And I was like, this is awesome. This is so cool. And the same with Picard. He had to have like this acting sort of, because he's a diplomat. He's always kind. He's always not passive. He's just sort of patient and resourceful. But he had to have this evil, sinister thought all the time in his head because the evil Troy would have picked up on his kind nature. So stuff like that is interesting, but I mean, that's specific to that kind of story. That's just, okay, I have to put on a disguise. You can tell a story being undercover. And they've done that before without having alternate universes in Star Trek, with that episode where Picard is he's some guy on a ship, and he's got this collar on him, and all these other guys have collars on him, and Riker is in charge of the Enterprise, and it's like, yeah, you could do disguise episodes. That's fine. That makes sense. You don't need them to have alternate personalities to make it interesting in general. That's kind of weird.
I think it works better if for a long time you've been accustomed to one version, you care about the characters there, and then if for some odd reason you have need of this tool, you can introduce this. I'm from a parallel universe.
Yeah,
whatever.
I think it actually screws up the narrative. I don't know if you guys remember the original Death Note where Light he throws away the Death Note and he loses all his memories of it, right?
Yeah.
And then he gets it back and all his memories come back and you're like, when was this a thing? Like we had no idea that this sort of behavior or function of the Death Note would cause this. So it's kind of a surprise, like, oh, that's how this works. And for whatever reason, this was all planned out. And you're like, what are you talking? This is crazy.
Yeah, because I can't remember correctly, like if Ryuk like told him beforehand or after that like he forgets everything that happened after taking the Death Note in 21 days if he doesn't touch it. But yeah, and then like it turns out the rule is extended that like if you have like a piece of paper, then like you still remember something if you just touch it.
Oh right, he had that little piece of paper on his watch or something like
yeah,
that. God.
Yeah, because like he didn't have the note itself, because like he gave it to Mikami. Yeah, that was the crazy guy. That was secretly his greatest admirer.
Yeah. Well, there's a few science fiction stories I could recommend about that. The most classic I've said before is The Demolished Man by Alfred Bester, which talks about the concept of killing someone in the future where everyone's telepathic. So how do you get it? It goes through the details, the steps of how you would plan a murder when everyone's scanning each other's brains all the time. So it's a classic.
I think the weakness of the multiverse tool in writing comes when the thing that you write, like the CW show, for example, where to this version, there's not even time to build up any connections with the characters. Or if you make a standalone movie for an original franchise, and then you just introduce the multiverse thing right away, then there's no care about any of the characters because they're not established enough. There's not enough connection to them, and then the standard perception of the audience then becomes, oh, there's everyone being interchangeable and going to other universes where Spider-Man is still a thing, but he's a bit different. That's the normal way of this world, and that is why those characters then have no stakes, because there's always another.
There's a primitive version. There's the extreme version, like there's gods controlling time and making sure everything's in order, and then there's like the weird thing that you get with I assume the Loki story or in Voyager with those time cops, Starfleet guys, whatever they were. So there's those kinds of stories you can tell that they still need this setup. Like with Back to the Future, it's just, I'm a scientist, I did a crazy thing, oh my god, what do we do? And no one knows what's going on, and it's all new. With
the Loki show is basically that Voyager plot in bad.
Oh really?
And the Voyager plot had a few holes, but the Loki show is just garbage.
Yeah, if you have a reasonable thing, everything's hands off. Do not play around with time, and only step in when you have to. That's kind of the idea I imagined from the Voyager episode. And then you have stuff like the gods of time is doing this, and he sends out his agents, and he makes sure nothing is broken, and blah, and all these big concepts. And you're like, okay, this is a fantasy now. This is a comic book. This is something that you need to sit down and read, not a dissertation, but like a whole chapter or two on the setting and how magic works and why gods can do this and who are the gods and why are they doing this and why does this work this way. So it's tough to tell these stories, and you have to like this kind of stuff. You have to give the audience something, I was going to say clever, like Sliders, because it's clean and simple. Some guy makes a sliding mechanism to go into another dimension. That's simple. Once you start playing with time, like time loops are fine because it's all contained within that loop. Whether you die, there's an explosion or whatever. Like I remember a few stories like that, even in the Outer Limits. It was 1201 was another one I remember watching, which was weird. So there's stuff you can do that is, if it's small enough, like a short story concept or plot, it works well. But outside of that, with this big stuff with Scarlet Witch. I'm like, oh no, the alternate reality warping person. You're like, oh, this is gonna be fun. What does she screw up next? And they made a show about that. I'm like really? They clever, but no, it's gonna probably end in flames. Anyway.
Like this, and you bring that person over, they aren't going to have the same connection with each other. John Henry, Lois Lane, Harrison Wells, Spider-Man. If your multiverse is like Rick and Morty, then yeah, you could just hop over to the next universe and it won't matter. Again, when the concept is used correctly, it makes the multiverse.
Yeah, but Rick and Morty is a parody joke show. It's not meant to be taken seriously, so you can get away with a lot when it's a parody or for fun. When you're talking about these dramatic shows like Marvel and Star Trek, they're meant to be taken as is, as serious. So genre is kind of important there.
Have stayed. That's not to say that the show is bad just because they take a Rick and Morty approach. It just doesn't work on everything. Multiversal stories are not the problem.
At least we agree on that.
The problem is that it's multiverse in name only. What's the point of having a multiverse if we're not going to see the other worlds or our characters?
That's not the problem. The problem is once you start doing that, you start opening up the rest of the story to problems and questions that if they don't get answered, you're going to lose your audience. You're going to be like, well, why don't you just go back in time? Why don't you just go to another reality? Why can't it's like all these other things?
Why don't we just solve our problem with a multiverse solution and take something from another universe and use it here?
Yeah, that was kind of. I remember one of the things because in Sliders they want to get back home, right? They don't know which is their reality. They actually like halfway through the story, they do in fact get home, but so many things change so quickly. They're like, wait a second, O.J. Simpson, he's not guilty. That's impossible. Like all these weird things that during the 90s or whatever that you would think, oh, this is a pretty crazy year, riots and whatever. They're like, oh, this is not real. This is not our world, because they saw a newspaper and the timer on his watch was like 2 minutes or whatever, so they didn't have enough time to think about it, and they ended up leaving the reality. The same with the way they tell is there's a door that squeaks, the white picket fence door to his house, and because his mom always asked him to fix the door, because he was too busy making the machine. Now that he's gone, his mom just realized, okay, well, my son is gone. I have work to do. I should fix that squeaky door. So it's like little things like that. You're like, oh, no. Because the audience gets it, but clearly the characters don't. So I thought that was...
The characters mistake that for, I'm not in the right world because the door doesn't squeak.
It was like, oh, no. Because they found an alternate version of Cue Ball, who was like a super genius, and he was like, okay, come on, guys. And he was like flirting with all the girls, and he's super confident, and he's actually a nice guy. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna help you out, blah blah blah. So he actually brought them where they had to go to his proper coordinates, and they didn't believe it. So brilliant. Anyway,
from another version of themselves. Imagine No Way Home with 3 Tom Holland Spider-Man, all the same age, all the same experiences. Would you rather have that or the No Way Home we got with all 3 Spider-Men, all different ages and different experiences?
I would like No Way Home.
How about one character? How about one character you focus on instead of 2 or 3 or 5 or 10?
Exactly, because like when you don't have a focus on one character, then like why are we watching exactly? Like, because we want to watch one story, so we don't have to know everything. Like the fact that like they managed to like get those 2 characters is like a complete accident.
Right.
Like that you had like both of them had like franchises on their own.
Exactly. When you have a ensemble cast, you don't have time to develop them all or to focus on one character for 20 minutes and another character for 20 minutes. The ensemble cast works when the plot needs them to work in the way they do. Like the Dirty Dozen, like any of the Ocean stories where they have a heist story. You need the driver guy. You need the safe cracker guy. You need the computer hacker guy. You need all these specialists to do the job. So it's like, okay, it's going to be like clockwork. They're planning, they're training, they're getting their skills refined. They're got the plan going. And then, oh, there's a wrench. Oh, my God, what do we do? I can't do the backflip onto the safe or whatever. It's like, that's, ooh, how are they going to get out of that? Like, that's the way those stories work so well, because the plot needs to be laser focused because you have so many people. You don't have time to, the focus is not drama of them as a person. It's them as a functional piece of the story, so that the goal is to steal the thing. Even if they're horrible people, even if they're like, you know, they're stealing like millions and millions of dollars from, I don't know, the Feed the Children organization or something like that. Like, you want to see them pull it off because that's the whole point of the story.
The story interesting and dynamic. They can play off of each other. Now, you could think what you want about this movie, but I think Everything Everywhere All at Once.
But really, like, that Spider-Man movie just wouldn't work if, like, they set it up that, like, oh, this is gonna be a multiverse from the get-go. Because, like, we gotta talk about, like, the stories that, like, were started out that, like, they're gonna be multiverse stories, like, Into the Spider-Verse. Like, that movie, when it first came out, like, that was, like, the first idea that they're gonna build on the multiverse idea from the beginning. Like, but, like, the No Way Home is just, they made it up on the go, like that.
Yep.
Raimi stuff and like the other one had fortunately, like, they didn't had crossovers even, and that's kind of like something I miss from Marvel movies, is when they had like standalone story where none of the other heroes were intervening. That like, oh, because then you bring up questions like, how come like none other of those heroes managed to like come and help out in this story? That's really what ticks me off with these movies nowadays, because there are like almost like dozens of them now, or hundreds that could just intervene and like help out, but no, they are like going elsewhere, like they're busy. Really, all of them?
I kind of remember the setup for in DC, where they're going to do a Justice League. That's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't do it in the right order, or they were taking so long because the popularity of the show.
You mean the one that came after like Zack Snyder's one?
Yeah, after Batman.
Oh
v
yeah.
Superman,
Oh, right? that was horrible.
It's like, did we get a Flash movie yet? I think we got an Aquaman movie before that, right? I think.
Yes.
No, we got a Jason
the
Momoa
Aquaman
movie.
came afterwards.
Oh, it did? Oh, see, this is what doesn't make sense with DC. They have to set this up, but Snyder was like, no, we're going to do it this way, and you're like, all right. I mean, it doesn't have to be alternate realities, but you still have to set up this concept of an ensemble cast who has a problem to solve. And if you don't know who these characters are, you then have to flesh out who they are. And there's no time to do that. So we have these extendedly long stories. And that's when you get the Snyder Cut crap, where it's like, oh, yeah, this is good if it was 40 minutes long and that was it. There was an episode of a miniseries on, like, you know, at your streaming services. That would work great, but not as a 4-hour piece of whatever.
Maybe you should have made a cyborg movie before.
Exactly. And I remember people online saying, oh, it's so good. It's 4 hours. It's not a movie. That's, I'm not sure what that is. I mean, if we're going back to the original days of movie making, they would just make these long ass things. They have intermissions as if we were going to the opera. And they would be like an hour and a bit. Oh, let's get a drink. And, oh, come back in half an hour. Okay, great.
3-hour movies were a thing even before Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah. But they actually were set up as a story that just happened to be long. It was a real story that made sense and had like timelines.
Yeah, and it just took its time to breathe and flesh things out. What was the last one thing that I recently saw that did that? Damn, I don't remember.
I think it was, the original I remember was The Sound of Music, or like a really long movie. That's been cut up over the years as Christmas comes by and people like watching that, and The Ten Commandments and a bunch of others. So, but they were around 3-4 hours long, and they were designed that way. But to take breaks. Anyway, pacing is important.
Take advantage of the multiverse. Every time a decision is made, an alternate universe is created. When the husband wanted to talk to Evelyn, the main character, he first had to present her with a choice. That choice created an alternate universe that she could body hop to later. The villain could turn any object to anything she wanted by using the multiverse. Some really crazy stuff happens in this movie, and I would say this is a very good use of the multiverse. Side note, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness also had body hopping between multiverses, but I think Everything Everywhere All at Once does it better. In every reality, she was the same person,
Because
but
it's
she
actually
had a
about
different
that.
life because she did one thing differently. Now let's address the next critique. If you kill this character, then you could just bring them back.
Not just one, but a series of events, and the rest of the world did as well. It's not that there's a totally infinite amount in everything all at once. Although if there is, it's such a vast network because they explain it that certain ones are closer to the one you're in or closer linked and so on. So it's much more difficult to jump to one that is vastly different from where you are. That's a good that is actually a good setup for this entire thing, and it also sort of kind of makes sense when you think about it, that similar worlds are clustered together, while Marvel and DC, for that matter, they're just random. It's just random shit. It's just whatever the writer needs. It's not thought through. And the last surprisingly long movie I watched was Apocalypse Now. That was surprisingly long. And that's that.
Okay.
Like I said before, you can with the Rick and Morty approach, but I think there's a very good example on how to handle this. Let's look at Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. For context, in Avengers Infinity War, Thanos threw Gamora off a mountain in exchange for the Soul Stone. Then, in Avengers Endgame, somehow, Gamora returned. Okay, but seriously, Gamora returned by traveling to the future with past Thanos. Remember, this is a Gamora from before she met the Guardians. After Thanos was defeated, Gamora stayed in the present, her future.
Time travel! What?
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 picks up a few months later, I think. I'm still kind of confused about the timeline post-Endgame. Anyway, the Guardians are now running nowhere and Gamora has joined the Ravagers. Whenever Peter Quill and Gamora interact, it's not the same as it was before. Quill still has feelings for Gamora, but Gamora doesn't because she hasn't experienced Volume 1 and 2. Going from working alongside Thanos straight to joining the Ravagers would build a different Gamora than we had previously. She didn't care about any of the Guardians besides Nebula because...
Yeah, I still don't understand how everything could even happen in the first place if Gamora was never sacrificed in order to gain the Soul Stone in the first place.
Because that's from a different... Well, yeah, but they went to a different timeline and got that stone there.
That's not how that worked. They explained that. It's broken.
It's shit.
Yeah. In the comics, there were at least a set of Infinity Stones per universe, which is different from timelines.
Or like the Dragon Ball Super Universe. Yeah.
What? Oh no.
That was like such a great idea as well. Oh god.
Anyway.
Help.
She didn't Xandar or get the Power Stone from Ronan or have to fight a living planet. It could have been very easy for Marvel to bring her back to the character she was in Volume 2 by having her get explained everything and looking at some photos like they did in Loki. But unlike Loki, they didn't take the easy way out. This Gamora was different, and she didn't rebuild the connection she had with the Guardians. And Quill had to accept that the
because
Gamora
James Gunn is a more competent director than that hack fraud who made Loki. Guardians 3 is like nowhere as good as the first two, but at least I would still call it a movie that people should go to and watch instead of the rubbish that you can see from Marvel from now on. But it's really bothering because like it's really stupid that okay, this character is from a completely different timeline and she's just staying there like nothing happened. Like there's no repercussions about it.
he knew was gone. Loki could have done the same thing. Instead of having him watch a replay of his life and reverting back to the same character, I think they should have went the opposite direction. Because this isn't Ragnarok Infinity Wars Loki. This is 2012 Avengers Loki. This guy is dangerous. They should have had him see himself in the video, and it makes him say, oh, well, I'm not going to let that happen to me because I'm smarter or something. And then at some point, he betrays the TVA, and maybe, I don't know, he becomes President Loki, which would have allowed us to see just the kind of mastermind he is. And this wouldn't even change the ending. King would still offer our Loki the same deal. You kill me, start the cycle over again, or you let me live and I give you the life you want in another timeline. Loki decides not to kill him because if he kills him, he would have to deal with all these other Kang variants. This would fit in with Loki running away from certain things, like his reaction to seeing Hulk in Ragnarok.
I have to get off this planet.
I hope this makes sense, and I'm not saying doing it exactly like this would work, but a kind of variation I think would have been better. And I'm actually a fan of the Loki series. With Evelyn, we got to see everything, everywhere, all at once. But in Loki, we see everything one time. First, we're on Pompeii. Then Lamentis, then Roxxon. Why should I care about Roxxon? Last time I checked, Cloak and Dagger isn't canon, and that wouldn't matter anyway because that's centuries in the future. And the Lamentis sequences could have been in a Guardians movie. Loki is more planet hopping than time travel multiverse hopping. So of course some people say, why should I care? Because they shouldn't. These places hold no weight. In this story, they should. This is where Rick and Morty has the advantage. There are times when the planet gets destroyed or the status quo changes.
Okay, well, he's making a good point that there should be weight in the story. Yes, I agree. And it doesn't matter if it's time travel or alternate realities or whatever. So,
And then he continues saying Rick and Morty.
Yeah, this works in Rick and Morty. It's like, okay, I guess. It's a parody, fine. Sure.
It works in the parody.
That's what he thinks.
Hop into the next world for a clean slate. This works in Rick and Morty because the emphasis isn't placed on where they are because everything's treated as normal.
No, it's a cartoon for laughs. It's not treated as serious. You don't take the dialogue that Rick says as scientific fact. He says a bunch of techno jargon that makes whatever sense to him, and you're like, sure, yeah, okay, you just fixed the thing, and now you could use the thing to do the other thing. It's like, okay, whatever, who cares? Also, he can look cool.
It's also that in Rick and Morty, everything and everyone is replaceable, but this Rick and this Morty.
And they're all...
Because the story's about them and everybody else,
and they're all
every one of the family.
They're blowing up, they're being reborn, they're alternate beings. They're all kinds of weird... It's all for laughs. If you start thinking about Rick and Morty seriously, you're wasting... Like, you are doing the wrong thing for the wrong reasons. That's like trying to look at romance in a thriller film. Like, it's just like, okay, maybe the guy really does love the girl. Oh, look, he has his heart pulled out in 2 seconds. Okay, well, I guess that story went nowhere.
On the other, the places we go to in Loki are treated as big deals. If they would have used Nowhere, Xandar, or even New York, that would have made us care because we know those places. Even Rick and Morty, we care somewhat about the destruction of the planet. Loki is trapped in a place...
Do we still?
So familiarity with setting makes us care? I mean, technically, yeah, I guess. But I remember... this happened last week. I don't know if you guys have heard of A Strange New World Season 2. I'm not watching it. But my dad is. And he's saying, hey, in episode 3, they go back in time to 1980s Toronto. And I'm like, what? Seriously? They actually... He's like, yeah, it's cool. I'm like, okay. Have fun. I'm not watching that. Like, it's silly crap. And there's actually
Are you in the episode?
Yeah, a toddler running around. Like, this is silly. So
we cannot prevent Smudboy from making those Mass Effect videos.
Yeah, what are we gonna do? How to stop the formation of BioWare in the 80s? Like, okay.
This is a canon event now.
We don't care in a random part of the galaxy going through an apocalypse. Phineas and Ferb handles this much better. In the movie called Phineas and Ferb Across the Second Dimension, there's
Actually, like, didn't that new Star Trek series kill off Kirk or something? I think I read something along those lines.
I think it's his brother, maybe. I don't remember.
I know, but like the brother dies in the TOS.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's it's only one scene when Kirk and the crew visit the planet. I think it's the last episode of season 1.
Right.
TOS.
Kirk's there. Yeah.
And Kirk is there, and he checks the body, and it's just him with the mustache. And then he tells Spock that it's my brother. That's great.
a sequence that requires them to run through a bunch of different dimensions before returning to their own. These dimensions don't matter, but the focus isn't the dimensions. The focus is on getting back home. You could argue the same for Loki.
Wait a second. Okay, this is the same concept of sliders, but the focus is, hey, what cool place did we go to this week? And whatever the plot and problems are. That's the nature of the story. The difference is it's not a comedy. It's a drama. So interesting set pieces, standoffs, how to get through a door, whatever the problem is. It's quite straightforward. So
in a drama, you have less freedom with being nonsensical about how everything works.
yeah, the plot's the same, but in this case, the nature of the story for this cartoon is comedy. So yeah, what are they doing? Holding on to big rubber? I don't even know what's happening in the scene here, but it's for laughs. So yeah, you can't have people hugging planets or whatever's happening.
I like whenever he tells me that. There's a good example for the Multiverse, and then whatever it happens, it's a cartoon or a parody, or both.
Yeah.
All that tells us is that silly cartoons for children are handling this difficult writing tool better than Marvel does.
And I'm suddenly reminded of the isekai story of the guy who keeps getting reincarnated or keeps getting isekai'd, but he retains all of his skills from his previous isekai. So he's going through it over and over again, and the god's just like, oh, welcome to our world. You're going to defeat the Demon King. Here's a gift to analyze anything in the world. He's like, oh, great, thank you. And then he has all these other skills and items from other worlds, so he just kills the Demon King within like an hour. It's like, whoa, you're amazing. And he just keeps doing that over and over again. So the joke is that he's
farming Demon Kings.
He's speed running the worlds and just getting so bored and tiresome. It's almost like One Punch Man, but there's actually a dramatic element. So he wants to go back to his first world where he found his friends and all that stuff. So it's like he's hoping and wishing that he can get there finally. So yeah.
Will he keep his skills when he gets back to home?
I hope so. I don't know. It kind of
prediction like, to get back home, he has to sacrifice all the skills that he already doesn't care about.
Probably, yeah. It reminds me of Quantum Leap. Like he forgot the process through going through the alternate people. He had to go in different time of the history of his past 100 years, whatever it was. He didn't know he had a wife, and the wife told Al I can't remember the gentleman's name, the guy with the crazy little tricorder thing that kept making those buzzing noises. He said, "Don't tell him about me. It'll ruin his mission. It'll ruin his job to correct the mistakes of the past," or whatever it was. In the last two episodes, I think, of Quantum Leap, he finds out about his wife. He's like, "What? Al, why didn't you tell me?" Al's looking at him. "I couldn't." You're like, "What?" "I just couldn't." And he runs off into the gateway. So there's consequences. The stakes. What are the stakes? In that case, we don't know what the stakes are till we get to the end of Quantum Leap. But we didn't know those were issues. So you can have stakes which are simple, like I want to go back to my wife. I want to get home. The plot's pretty much the same. The motivation's pretty much the same. It's the nature and why you are there, reading this story, watching the show. Is it fun? Is it fun to watch? Is the drama good? Do you like the characters and you believe in them? and their motivations make sense. With Loki, you could make that work. He's a trickster god, and now he's imprisoned, and now he's being an agent. I think he's being an agent to fix the mistakes he made. Is that the premise?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So that could work pretty well if you're smart and clever. And it can also work really horribly if you're a trickster god and you have no power. So he's just a guy then. It's stupid. So you have to play with that properly. It's again, rags to riches and building up. You can do these stories like crazy. So the plot is not the issue. It's what is the nature of the story and why are you watching it?
He's just trying to get home, but the difference is the whole show uses the idea of hiding in apocalypses so it could hold more weight if these apocalypses happen in places we're familiar with. What if we had him go to Asgard or Jotunheim because he grew up there and he knew a way off the planet? Like a backdoor of sorts. I mean, isn't that how he kept outsmarting Heimdall and Thor? Look, I'm a huge fan of this show, so don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to explain.
Wait a second. You're a huge fan of the show and you're saying this thing sucks? He has all these
Yeah,
skills.
he wants it. He's the type of fan who wants the thing to work. So he's at the stage of being in the realization of that it is crap, but he wants to like it because he wants the MCU to work, and he can't yet accept that it is all just bigger and bigger garbage that is deliberately written bad. Some of the criticisms he made about how Loki the character is written, for example, that's a deliberate choice of the writers because they seek to emasculate all male characters.
It's kind of funny. When we like things, we have a very rigorous reason why. Like, say, I like Chrono Trigger. It's like, okay, they could have used the time machine to go anywhere in time. It's like, yeah, but the plot said they had to go here to fix that problem. They could only have gone there. But why didn't they go back billions of years and do? Well, they did go back billions of years, but those things can't be altered at that point. And you could have left a camcorder or something in 65 billion BC. You could have done all kinds of crazy things, but Chrono is a silent protagonist. Marl is a runaway princess, and Luca is just the genius scientist. Everyone else is pretty much like their character is set. They're not going to start doing stupid shit. So yeah, they could have dropped a bunch of junk billions of years ago or 100 years ago or whatever, but the story didn't ask for it. The character doesn't ask for it. It's against their character to do something like that. And that would open up a whole can of worms that a fun time travel romp of a story would just get derailed. And I think the writer knew that. Just keep it simple. Just get everything straightforward. We don't have to do crazy stuff and play the Bill and Ted's crazy time game of, we left the gun under the seat, dude. And all this other stupid shit that they...
Excellent.
That they planned out in advance. Like, what? That's stupid. That was so... And we left the key because we knew it was going to happen. It's like, what?
I'm sure
I think it's even more stupid than the sequel. They have to outsmart the villain.
Well, I think that's where it works the best because you're talking about the afterlife, and it's like it's so silly. It's like, yeah, this is dumb. This is funny. So it's not to be. It's not meant to be taken. So if you have like a death guy who's like lonely, he just wants to play fun games with everyone.
You suck by battleship.
Don't talk about my ass. Reaping burns lots of calories. He's like, oh my god, what is this guy talking about? This is a goofy movie. So that's a parody, but there's also some really fun camera angle. Like if you watch the second Bill and Ted, it's really well done. Like the camera angles, the color, the lighting, everything is so fun and vibrant, and it feels like a film from the 80s that you would watch over and over again. Anyway, the first one's a great game.
It is a great game. I mean, I think again, movie.
Well, even the first one's fun because it has to do with all those classic people from history. So,
yeah.
Blaine, fix some of these critiques. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness also uses the multiverse. In the movie, Doctor Strange and America Chavez are running away from Wanda, who is trying to use America Chavez in order to see her children. One thing about this...
Yeah, but it's less of a timeline thing and more actual parallel world stuff. But the MCU apparently decided to make it all the same thing.
Oh, really?
And that's what breaks it. Yeah.
Wanda can go anywhere?
I think Wanda is... No, wait. It's too late. What I meant to say is the MCU mixes up timeline different worlds with actual different dimensions.
Oh, I see. Okay.
This movie, characters not being used to their fullest and characters not being used at all. You have the Illuminati being used instead of a multiversal team or a time travel team. You could have had Excalibur, the Britain Corps, the Council of
the Britain Corps. No. You don't want these. These guys are not. You do not want to put these guys.
The Council of Reed.
Yeah, you do not want to put these.
They're all reed-pilled.
Isn't this the same thing as the Council of Ricks? That's what they're making fun of.
Probably.
I don't remember. Anyway, you do not want to put random storylines that are not ready for the movies. That maybe some fanboys would be like, "Oh my god, they did that." It's like, yeah, but no one knows and no one cares in general.
Yeah, because that's the same thing that he complained before about, that's not established, therefore no stakes, no feeling, no connection. Which is something I said in the very beginning. That is a relevant thing, but I think he brings it up the wrong way. It's not about whether you just know it just has to be established the right way.
Yeah.
Because there are even places that have been shown before in the MCU, like Nowhere. But do I give a shit about that place? It's a dump.
Yeah, this is the argument he's having for Loki. He says, I like Loki, but the show sucks. You're like, okay, but why would you like a show just because it has a character in it? That's like liking one of the Batman films from Schusterman.
Yeah, I like the Loki in the first 2 Thor movies, and after that it gets weird.
Yeah. Anyway.
So that's not the same character. I claim this is already one from a different universe. Because the one that we know from the previous movies doesn't behave like he does, so he must be a different one or an imposter.
Name a few using the multiverse, and you don't have a multiversal team. Like what's that all about?
Wait. What do you need a team for when you're what is he, the wizard, like the best wizard ever? Like he can do anything. So why does the wizard extraordinaire need a team?
My question there is, why didn't Doctor Strange pull let's get all the other Doctor Stranges together because we're facing a multiversal threat?
That would make sense. I need help from myself. Wow, I guess you'll never get any help from yourself.
Because I know I am just so amazing. The only thing, and I can't solve this problem, therefore the only thing that can solve this problem is 20 of me.
Yeah. Oh no.
Because that's 20 times as amazing as only me.
The Council of Doctor Strange solves every problem in the multiverse. Okay.
Strange Council.
Strange Council. Yeah, that's great.
Into the Spider-Verse also had these different versions of the characters interact, and they interacted in a way that they didn't really interact with other people. It's not the exact same. Okay.
Yes, I would.
What does he mean?
He means that since all these characters know that they're Spider-Man, they all know each other's secrets, therefore they can interact with each other differently than with people who don't know they're Spider-Man.
Yeah,
because they're not supposed to.
That kind of goes without saying.
But we gotta have all the NPC interactions with each and every Spider-Man. Okay.
Yeah, if you encounter...
how should we write the movie?
Yeah, if you encounter yourself in another world, you're like, oh, hi, me. I know everything about you and you know everything about me. This is weird. Yes, it is. As opposed to meeting a stranger.
Peter here is eating like a hobo.
My
everything
own
stuck around his
clone.
mouth.
Finally, none of us will be virgins.
Did his nose get broken or something? I don't know what's going on there.
Yes.
Yeah, looks like it.
Yes, I think like he got smashed because like he just got teleported to this multiverse, and then I think Miles treated him for a burger or something.
Oh, cool.
Okay, all these critiques are valid. We can't write off the whole concept because they decide to poorly execute it or take a Rick and Morty approach. There are 4 multiversal movies coming out between this year and next year, and I hope they're up to the task. Anyway, I hope that makes sense. Let me know what you think.
Okay, well, that was a weird critique. I mean, there is a problem with any genre that's being overused, like isekai. The issue is it selling? Is it any good? So if it's selling, that doesn't mean it's good. But if you have a thing like, I always argue the isekai, there's something, or with manga, there's something for everyone. It's just that everyone likes the isekai genre all of a sudden. So you're going to get iterations of that, of the thing that people like. It just gets kind of stale for the rest of us who've been reading this stuff for years. And we're going, okay, you're doing a harem with a girl, sort of reverse harem, and she doesn't have any combat skills, and she isn't here to solve the problem of evil. She has to rebuild the kingdom, and you just keep going into all the other tropes, and you just keep go. So you're going to get the thing you like eventually. And
I think the problem with Hollywood is that what they produce is multi-million-dollar productions, and they all write the same shit at the same time. They think, that's what the others are writing, so we need to do that too, so that we can cash in on the shit. But what is actually happening is that the audience basically has no choice in what to watch because it's all the same shit.
That's a very good argument, because now I'm looking at various manga I've read over the years, and it's taken... I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Solo Leveling. It's this one, I think it's South Korean manga or manhwa that was finished off, 3 years ago, whatever. They now are doing another one with the son just because it's so popular. And they finally it took like so many years to finally make an anime. And it was announced like 5 years ago that they're doing an anime because it's super popular. So...
Oh yeah, haven't they recently announced something about that?
Yeah, I think it came out last month or a few weeks ago, and there was a trailer. It was really good, and it's like, wow, why did it take so long for that to come out? Because all the investors were scared of losing money. It's like, is this going to sell? Does the world market care? I don't think so. And then you look at the stats on pirate sites or whatever you call those pop-up sites for manga, because they get shut down every few months or whatever it is, even with anime. Hundreds of millions of page views. So people are reading, they want more of it, they can't find it anywhere else. So once you pick the most popular thing, like what is the anime that's really popular now, aside from Superhero School, whatever the hell that was.
Chainsaw Man?
Well, I don't know if that's super popular, but it's super well known. So it could be popular. I don't know what the biggest, most viewed manga is, but once you have numbers like in the hundreds of millions, even if you have 5% of the market share going to the theater,
Demon Slayer,
there you go. There's a very popular. It doesn't really matter which one. Anything for young adults. Once you have those numbers, you're like, okay, maybe we could invest some money. Maybe we could put this into a higher production value, see what kind of return we get. That's all. It all comes down to how much faith do we have in the product to sell. So if you have the numbers, it's a world-renowned product in that space, and you market to that space, people will come out and watch it. So, and that's after at least 5 or 6 years of the isekai genre being popular and choosing the best out of all of them. So maybe not the one that I'm most excited about or enjoy reading the most, but it's the one that's going to make the most money. So that's why people make stuff. And that's it. It's very simple. It's popular. It sells. So anyway, that was a not a horrible take on the problem. Could have used a bit more polish, but a little subjective.
And a pop filter.
Oh, yeah? Did you have some?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Good point. Sure. Always use better audio. Always the case. Do we have any stream memes? I don't think we will, because this is a pretty straightforward video. Oh, we do. Oh my god. What happened? Or maybe people just have lots of memes in general.
I think it was this is a fan who wants this thing to be good, but it still has to realize that it can't be.
I think,
and won't ever be.
I think his tastes are a touch too esoteric when he's referring to Loki. And why don't we get different versions of Loki? It's like the actor has no problem doing that, but does the story demand it? Like, what would that make the story better? Would that make the plot make more sense? I don't think so.
Are the writers competent enough for that?
Oh. Me at a party talking about my multiverse of madness theories. My girlfriend. Oh, why did they use those pictures? I don't know. Was that during the trial when he was describing how he was defending himself against her?
Yes.
I don't remember that, him standing up and doing this. Jeez, when was that, like the first week or so? Jeez, I don't remember that at all. Girls after discovering the multiverse. I am you, but from another reality. Oh my god. Boys after discovering the multiverse. Come on, guys. We must defeat our evil version.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kill that guy. Oh.
At first I thought it's a Star Trek meme, then like, oh yeah, it's Doctor Strange.
Yeah. He was just watching as she killed everyone one by one.
Oh my god. Rick and Morty went this hard?
Yes. They have a whole short of them killing the Simpsons and then resurrecting them.
Holy hell. Oh, Owlman. I don't know what that is. Still don't know what that is. And now we have, how are you guys planning to mess up the multiverse? Together? This looks interesting. This is Elizabeth, I believe.
Yeah, it's the ending of the first, the main game for Infinity.
A nice bird.
Hey, I have some dimension. What?
Scissors. The demon girl is from Star vs. Evil.
I guess I'll have to make a portal the hard way. All right. Evil Spock guy. Oh.
Ah, finally.
Why is Wesley there? He's just there.
He has a stubble.
He's already evil.
Evil 7 of 9 breaks me.
Q was mentioned, so therefore Blue's Clues? What is this? I don't understand.
Neither do I.
Turtle power. Oh no.
Oh, is this the one?
Yeah, that is the one.
That is well done.
Cool. Anyway. Oh my god, what is this? I have no idea what's going on.
Looks like Sonic stuff?
I am Count Blex, Master of Dimensions, the pleaser of crowds. I am Dementio? Donate to the Children's Fund. Why? What has children ever done for me? Oh. That's not nice.
Oh, Mr. Krabs.
Anyway, that was easy. Friday video thing. Wasn't that hard? Nice and short. He has a very small channel, so maybe he'll do some other stuff in the future, but didn't really bother me. It wasn't a big deal.
Well, it wasn't too bad, actually. Like,
yeah.
At least he had some critical ideas as well.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. He was a bit critical. He was a bit subjective, but that goes with the territory when you're not using a completely objective understanding. And I think if he looked at just the problems with multiverse stories and just addressed that per story or per movie, I think we'd have a much clearer understanding of
Yeah.
what he was getting at.
Yeah, I'd say hopeful fan with not enough experience.
Yeah. All
So
right.
there's room for growth.
I agree. Yes. So thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you later. Have yourself a great evening. And hopefully on the weekend we'll do something fun. So see you later. Bye-bye.